What's up? Roll Tide, everybody. Alabama, huge win last night on the road. You may say, was it that big of a win? Is South Carolina really that good? Any win in the SEC on the road is a big win this year. I'm going to break that down for you. We're going to talk about the huge upcoming matchup this Saturday. Crimson Tide, 13-2 now overall, sitting at a nice mark of 2-0 in SEC play. And the test will keep on coming. But let's get this party started. Alabama basketball, Catfish courtside. All right, what's up, everybody? Roll Tide. Welcome into Catfish Courtside. I'm Chad Anderson. Thanks for being here on the channel. Alabama, 13-2 now, 2-0 in SEC play. Bama's holding on to that top number 2 seed in Joe Lunardi's bracketology, and that's because teams in front of the Tide just aren't losing, with the exception of Tennessee, who did get blown out earlier in the week on the road in Gainesville. That was Tennessee's first loss of the year. They played a difficult schedule. They held on to that one line. Right now, the Tide sitting as the 5th overall seed in Lunardi's bracketology, which means they're the top 2 seed. And I think most recently I saw they were in Duke's region, which would be up in Newark, New Jersey, the East region, Bama being the 2, and they would face potentially Duke in the Elite 8 for the right to go to the Final Four. But Alabama had its first conference road test last night. Crimson Tide looked good. I mean, from the opening bell. Carolina did have a little bit of that first 2 minutes jolt of energy, crowd into it, all the hype, 5th team in the country there. But Alabama just kind of waded their way through, and really Phylon hit that 3 early on where he got fouled, 4-point play. Bama never looked back. They led the rest of the way. They had a 17-point lead at the break, and then in the second half, outscoring the Gamecocks 43-40 for a final tally of 88-68. Alabama averaging 91 points per game, which is a huge number, one of the tops in the country, and the Tide falling just short of that average, but doing so on the road. And another tough road test coming up. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. Looking at last night's game, we're starting to see Mark Sears, the cleaned up version, and the same version from last year. Sears was on fire last night. In the first half, he was 4-4 from 3-point range, had 16 points, helped the Tide to a 17-point lead at the intermission. And you can just see early on in the season, it's not that we were, busting his chops, but Sears was just having a few of those mental lapses, almost like he was pressing. He was trying to do too much, trying to make the crazy passes, trying to do, things here or there that were just outside of the repertoire. But now Mark Sears, the last couple of games, has just been insanely good. And last night puts up 22 points, leads the way for the Crimson Tide, played 30 minutes. That's another thing to watch this year. If you watch down the stretch at the end of last season, Sears was playing 40 minutes, 39, 40 minutes every single game. Like, his legs had to have been completely gassed. And the depth that Alabama has, and they rotated 12 people into the game last night. Alabama is able to do that and give guys like Sears some rest. They get some time on the bench. They get the opportunities. And you say, man, we go to the bench. That's a problem. Did you know that going into last night, Alabama's bench was averaging over 34 points per game? So there's really no production fall off. I mean, imagine that. If you could go from your starting 5 to your bench, and your bench puts up 34 points, that's an unbelievable number for the Crimson Tide, for any basketball team. And I also loved watching Nate Oats last night. I think it was Darion Reed. Bama was up 15-16 at the time, and there was a kind of a lazy lack of communication. Carolina made a couple of baskets. Oats went nuts. I mean, just chewing the team out. It was the Nick Saban style. Like, nothing's good enough. You play to a certain standard. You play to a point to where, hey, we have to do it this way because it's going to matter in future games. And I really love to see that from Oats last night, and just how he kept the energy up, even with Alabama having a large lead on the road in the second half. So taking a look at some of the numbers, we mentioned the bench. Off the bench, it was Holloway leading the way. He had 13 points, hit 1 3 last night, and that was in 22 minutes. The rest of the crew, Reed had 9. Diabate had a nice game last night with 7. Sherelle had 7. Mallette didn't get on the board, and Youngblood had 1 3. In last night's contest. Jaron Stevenson, even though he only had 3 points last night, he actually had the Hard Hat Award in the post game given by Nate Oates. So congrats to Jaron Stevenson. Greatly improved his game from beginning of the year. Still plenty of ceiling for him to work through, but still nice to see how he's progressed from early November, 60 days ago to where he is now. Grant Nelson last night with 6 points. He had 7 boards. It was Clifford Omoruyi. He had 10 points, 5 rebounds. And it was LeBaron Philon with 8. And then, like I said, Mark Sears with 22 points in 30 minutes for the Crimson Tide last night. Only 11 turnovers for Bama. They've done such a great job recently of taking care of the basketball. 6 weeks ago, that was a big problem against Houston, against Rutgers, against Oregon, all out in Vegas. And the last few games, Alabama has done a much better job keeping it around that 10 number, and in some games, even less than that. Shooting-wise, Alabama, 54% from the field, just under the 55 mark, 42% from three-point range. Bama actually didn't take as many threes as normal. They only took 19. And you say, wow, only 19. But this is a team that usually averages around 30 threes in a basketball game. Alabama, 8 of 19. Carolina, 3 of 14 from beyond the arc. Free throw shooting last night was it just simply wasn't good. Even guys that you would expect to make weren't making. Philon missed, Sears missed. You just had some unusual misses at the charity stripe. Bama 10 of 20 from there yesterday evening. Out rebounding South Carolina 36-33, winning the turnover battle 11-15. Crimson Tide 2 points in the paint. You know how Nate Oates likes it, either easy 2 or a 3, and Crimson Tide with 48 points in the paint compared to South Carolina's 32. All right, next up for Alabama, Saturday night, Crimson Tide going back on the road, and Alabama has got a tough one. They're going up against Texas A&M. The Aggies currently sitting at number 10 in the country. They are also 13-2. They are also 2-0 in the SEC, and they just came off of a big win. They defeated Texas. That was at home a few nights ago, beat them pretty easily, 80-60. But they came from behind last night on the road against Oklahoma and beat the Sooners 80-78. And you say, well, Alabama blew out Oklahoma. But we all know going on the road, again, in the SEC, not easy to do. Oklahoma's talented. They may not be like the top 6 or 7 in the SEC, but they're still a tournament team, and they were undefeated until they got into conference play. And when you run into Alabama and A&M, it's a pretty tough 1-2 punch. So Crimson Tide, they've done their job, 2-0, but they've got a really tough 3-game stretch here where you got A&M on the road, you host Ole Miss at home, who is a top 25 team, just beat Arkansas on the road last night, and then you go to Kentucky. That's coming up next Saturday, early game at Rupp Arena, and Kentucky was able to beat Florida in their opener, 106-100, before going on the road and losing to the Georgia Bulldogs. So SEC, man, just buckle up. It's going to be wild. Crimson Tide, tough 3-game stretch. We'll see how they do, how they come out of it, and what it looks like as they go into, I don't want to call anything easy, but a lighter half of January on the back end as conference play gets started here in the Southeast. So, all right. Thanks to everybody for watching, and also want to make sure that you guys are aware of this. So new mortgage program has been out. We got it zeroed down multiple ways. The best thing is if you've ever been told no, if you don't think you qualify for this, I would encourage you to still scan the QR code, check it out, fill out the form, and let's see if you do, because we've been able to get people into homes with zero money out of pocket. That is 100% true. And then we also just rolled out a new program called HELOC Express. It's a home equity line of credit. We had someone yesterday, for example, applied, closed last night, and they're going to have their money 3.5 days from now. So it is that easy. It's that simple. It's that fast. Best thing you can do, again, scan the QR code or reach out to me, email, phone number there, website on the screen as well. Appreciate all of you who have reached out, who have talked about your situation, talked about the mortgages, brainstorming, strategizing, whatever the case may be. Always appreciate it. So, all right, that's it for Catfish Courtside. We'll be back on Sunday recapping Bama and Texas A&M, and we'll also be keeping up with the bracketology and what's going on with Joe Lenardi's predictions as March inches nearer and nearer. We'll see where the Crimson Tide is going to be slated come tournament time. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you. Stay warm as well with all the snow coming, and we'll talk to you over the weekend on Sunday. Roll Tide, everybody.